Welcome back to the show. We are people who talk about stuff that's TV related.
There you go.
Yeah, that was
Main,
awesome. That was a great intro right there.
yeah, I like that. That was really that shows that we're just being genuine here. We don't edit this stuff. We go with whatever stupid things we say. No offense, Airto,
Yeah.
but I do them too. So, like I just did. Like I hear I'm rambling on about something that I should just have passed over. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is Behind the
So,
Rail. I should tell people what the show is.
oh,
Behind
it's
the Rail.
behind the rail,
Yeah.
and we mainly talk about comedies, and we talk
Yeah.
about some dramas, but mainly we talk about comedy, and the emphasis is on the writing and performance of the comedy. So, um, this week we wanted to talk about a show that I'd heard a lot about, and I mentioned to Airto, and he was curious about it too. We hadn't seen it. Uh, Only Murders in the Building,
Yeah.
and so we watched the pilot or the premiere episode.
Yeah, I was actually gonna, a few of because we've been doing pilots lately because pilot season's coming up at some point in one year or another. So not anytime soon. It's already passed, but it will come up again, presumably. I don't know, maybe. So I had that question too because this is not really a pilot, right? It's the first episode. It's a little bit different. And
I stopped writing pilot on my spec pilot scripts. I always put pilot / premiere.
Yeah.
Because if it's on a streaming network, like say Netflix, they buy the concept. You write a pilot script, but they really buy the whole series before they shoot the pilot script. So they're never really a pilot, but you can still call it a pilot script because still you have to write the first script before they're going to buy the series, unless
yeah.
maybe Steve Martin and Martin Short. I got a feeling this was pre-sold.
Yeah. And it felt fully fleshed out, like in terms of the sets and the characters. Like I don't know if they shot a pilot and then shopped it around and then whoever
I
picked it
doubt
up.
it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I think they sold the idea. They may or may not have actually written the pilot script, but most likely for the rest of us, if we had a great idea, they would then ask us. They'd want to see the pilot.
Some
Most
proof of
often,
concept type of
they
thing.
find a way of saying it to you so they don't have to pay you by not asking you to write the pilot, by saying that they'd read it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But whatever, you pretty much have to have the pilot episode. But since I wanted to make a distinction between a pilot episode, which is actually you make and then maybe sell the series,
Right,
to a what most of the streaming services seem to do now is they really like the idea, they get you to write the first episode, and if they like it, they don't shoot it yet, they make commitment to the season.
yeah. And we talked about pilots. We talked about Atlanta. We talked about Barney Miller, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We've talked about Big Bang Theory. Most of those actually had a pilot, and in fact, Barney Miller had 2 pilots that at least we saw separately or something.
So did the Big Bang Theory.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The original one had kind of a woman who could handle herself, who was a more mature woman, not older, more mature in her ability to stand up to people.
Right.
And they didn't like the way that turned out, and they shot another one with the Penny we know, who's just kind of a sweet, sexy little thing from next door.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely, this just felt like a fully baked series. You're just getting in on the first episode. So yeah, I thought about that when I was watching that. I was like, this isn't really traditionally a pilot, like that we're used to. So
right, I don't think they would have shot. Well, I don't think they would have shot this series based on a pilot. They shot the series based on the personalities. They got Martin, Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez to all say go. That was boom. That was it. But
yeah.
I'm sure there was a pilot script, not pilot episode, and not an official pilot script. Maybe they called it the first script. Maybe they paid him for the first script.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of permutations in the process of getting your series on the air.
We've talked about this before, I think in a couple different episodes, but I'm a huge Steve Martin fan. I like Martin Short. His Jiminy Glick character to me just makes me laugh. It's so funny. Selena
I'm a big
Gomez, I'm not
fan.
that familiar with. She's kind of in a different
Yeah,
genre
it's
of
funny
stuff than
because
I am
I
interested
don't
in.
know if Selena does more acting than singing, but I always thought I think of her as a singer first. So I'm not a big
Yeah, that's what
fan.
I thought she was. I mean, I knew that she's like from the Nickelodeon camp or something like that, like
She's from Disney, I believe, the
Disney.
Disney
Okay.
camp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So she was a child actress on one of their shows. I think it was the Wizards of Waverly Place or
Okay,
something
okay.
like that, where they were a family of wizards.
Okay.
But whatever, she's pretty and unusual looking. We were
Yeah.
talking earlier, she kind of has a doll's face, which is
Right,
really
right.
unusual. It's a very round, kind of small,
Hmm.
really well proportioned, pretty face, but
Yeah.
it almost looks like a doll. It doesn't seem to age, which is
Yeah,
she,
yeah, that's
yeah.
that was my whole thing with her. I mean, I'm a little bit older than her, so it kind of always like she's very cute, you know what I mean? But her popularity felt like forbidden, like and not a good
Well,
way.
you know
Like
what?
it didn't
Yeah,
seem
I'm
like something
saying,
I should be looking at because she just was so young looking for
yeah.
so long. Now she looks like an adult, so it's but she's way younger looking than I don't know her actual age, but she's like you said, a doll face, like she's
Yeah,
babyish.
even now in this show we just watched, she looked to me like she was maybe 20, 21
Right. Yeah. Very
at the
young
most.
still. Yeah.
And I think she's closer to 30, or she is 30, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, whatever. I like her. I've only seen her a few things. I do like her. I do like to look at her. I do like the way she acts. I do
Hmm.
like her. I even like the way she sings, though. This is the problem I had. Like you said, she's such a baby face
Hmm.
that her songs were very sexy. Maybe they
Yeah.
still are.
That's
I
what
don't
it
know if they
seemed
are.
like. A sexualization of a younger
Oh,
person
yeah.
is kind of
That's what
weird.
seemed wrong about it.
Yeah.
She plays this young part, and she looks like this young person, and then she's old enough to do these sexy things, but somehow they feel like a kid
Makes you
is.
feel creepy. Yeah. Like, well,
Yeah, yeah. So
but that's the weird thing about, it's like a machine where they crank out these super like ingenue, I guess, like these
mm,
very young girls, they hypersexualize them, and then you have to imagine it's not just teens and little kids that are interested in these type of characterizations. There's weird dudes out there that are probably lurking about and buy the
yeah, I'm
tickets and
sure.
that kind of shit. So
Well, if for those of you who've seen it, I'm not going to give away any of the mystery part because it's mainly a mystery. But I just wanted to
yeah.
talk about, as long as we're talking about Selena at this point, I thought that was interesting is that in the whole, in her all her parts and all in this particular episode, all her appearances, all her scenes, she's dressed stylishly, but not not
Not
sexy at all.
provocative, yeah.
And
And
I
that's
felt
actually
comfortable.
why I'm not familiar with her work because of that whole thing we just talked about. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but I felt very comfortable with that look. She was pretty,
Mhm.
well dressed, really interesting and nice to look at.
She looks like
But then,
an adult, like a
yeah,
professional,
she
but
looks
hip,
like an adult, a
an
very
hip
young
adult.
adult,
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
20-year-old. But then they did it for no apparent reason other than I think for the to pander to the lowest.
Oh, you're
Uh,
talking
l-
about that. Maybe we should set up the story real
okay, all
quick.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
But
not
yeah, I
talk
do want to.
about
I
it.
want to touch on that too because we talked about this beforehand and we both had similar thoughts about that, which is kind of like yeah. We'll get to it. Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to watch something with Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena. The three of them made me want to watch it.
Yeah. What
Otherwise,
an
I don't think I
interesting
would have
pairing
watched it.
or triplet.
A
Like
group, yeah,
yeah,
interesting group. And I knew I wanted to watch it. It was just a matter of time before I would. And then we decided, well, let's watch it this week,
yeah.
talk about it, and alienate some more people.
Mission accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, it was
well, you
good.
know,
What would you think? I mean, what like just on their initial watching before we get into the full-fledged analysis or whatever. What did you think? Like, what was your impression? Is it something you'd watch again? Did it hold your interest?
it's something I'd watch again. It wouldn't be my favorite.
Hmm.
It's not something that I would look forward to, waiting to when you could stream the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't stream it. I'd probably watch one and then
Hmm.
I'd need some time before I'd watch another one. So
Yeah.
that's not great, but it's good enough. There's most shows I don't even want to see it all again. So
Hmm.
I liked. all of them gave me what I expected. I loved Steve's performance. I
Hmm.
love Martin's performance, and I thought Selena was. I guess hers was on par with theirs. She was a
Hmm.
very interesting character. So the three of them did not disappoint me, and that's why I'd watch it. I wouldn't watch it for the story. I'm
Hmm.
not into the story, but it's a mystery, which is the strange part. Mystery is supposed to make you have an itch you need to scratch, and I don't really care
Hmm.
much. But I found their personalities appealing. I was watching it for the three of them.
Yeah, I mean, like if you were to compare it to something like Murder She Wrote or Monk or Matlock, or not Matlock, but what's the guy that Columbo?
Monk, oh,
You know,
Columbo, Monk,
those
yeah.
kind of like that genre. You, you watch it for the main character
Hmm.
who's discovering all these things, but you're always wondering how you want to solve it along with them. In this particular show, I'm watching it for those actors that we named, and the mystery of it does not really appeal to me that much. But again, it's the first episode. I came down really heavy on Ted Lasso for the first pilot episode,
Hmm.
and then I ended up watching the whole first and second season because the show is amazing. So I'm willing to give it a shot, but in terms of there was a couple of things, and one of the things that, not the thing that we talked about at the end, but the I guess they call it the unpeeling of the onion in terms of their characters. That kind of hooked me a little bit more than the actual murder mystery that they're
You're
trying to
right.
solve.
The mystery of who they are was more interesting to me than the mystery. In
Yeah.
that's the
Yes.
plot
Right.
point center.
Right.
Um, I don't really care who the somebody gets killed. Obviously, it
Yeah.
says murder in the title, so we're not giving that away. But
Yeah.
I didn't really care who he is or what he is, but I was interested in discovering more about the character, which is really probably the intention of the writer. I think Steve
Hmm.
Martin might have written it with somebody.
Oh, I
I,
didn't check, which I
I
should. I mean,
didn't
that's like the
see.
emphasis of the show. We should know these things.
Who cares who writes these things?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought the
but
actors just made it up as they went along.
but they do,
Yeah.
we're all lying about what we do. So they they create a mystery, a murder mystery, but I just don't care at all about that, how that unravels. But I do care about the characters, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Who's ever the the mastermind behind this is doing a very nice job of slowly peeling away the skin on an onion and letting us see more about these characters. And I really care about them. And I'm not sure if I care about them because of the writing or because of the performances of these characters, these actors, whom uh, I love.
Hmm.
I love watching these people. Not Selena so much because I just haven't seen much of her work, but I do
Hmm.
like her very much in this.
She must be
I
talented if they plugged her in with those two
Yeah.
guys, and she's holding her own. And they selected. I don't know what the selection process was, but she's in, so she must. That's a huge nod to work alongside those guys, I would imagine.
Yeah, and she's good.
Hmm.
I believe her character. Her character's really intriguing, and so are theirs.
Right.
Theirs are becoming intriguing and kind of a soft, mysterious way. It's not like
Hmm.
there's any tension or
Yeah, that's what's
immediate need.
lacking, right? Yeah, like if you watch a Murder She Wrote or Columbo, or there's a tension there. I think Monk is a little bit that borders that humorous type of
Yeah,
in terms of the genre bordering bridging or whatever. But this one's kind of like that too. Like it's not really a murder mystery type show, but it is also not really a full-fledged. I mean, it's more of a comedy, right? Than
mm.
you know,
Yeah.
it,
It had a lot of comedy in it. The thing is, what I don't know is, I guess I'll watch the series. I'm not sure that I will. Usually, I just watch pilots, maybe a few episodes, because I'm trying to
mhm,
cover the breadth of material that's out there. But
which is a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how long they can take unraveling who these characters are. They actually told us quite a bit about them in the first episode.
Hmm.
If they were to go at that pace, we'd know everything we need to know about them in about the middle of the first season. And then where are they going to go with that?
What's interesting is in terms of technique, right? Like with Martin Short's unraveling, his onion peeling, we saw him interacting with another character that gave us more depth into his personal life.
Right.
Um, with Selena Gomez, we didn't see that interaction in the same way unless you do some retro thinking, like going back to the elevator scene, but we just got a visual, and that gives us an idea. And then with Steve Martin's character, you have his interaction with, a floor mate, or I don't know what you call it, somebody who lived across the hall from him.
Right.
That was a suggestion of a past that he had kind of denied earlier. So in terms of technique and building these depths of characters, you sometimes don't need a lot. You don't need a full scene with every single character, like Martin Short you didn't have to have a Steve Martin interaction with his past or whatever to get the glimpses. And it's a glimpse, again, it's not a
Yeah, it is
full-fledged
just a glimpse.
and dive in.
At one point, Steve Martin just tells us his story. I'm not a big fan of when a character just tells you a lot about backstory. I'd
Mhm.
rather discover it through their performance, or their actions, their dialogue as it comes up little by little. But I was not bored at all with it. It didn't feel too long. It was just about as long as you can go when you just give an exposition. And they did it in an interesting way, because they're under an interesting situation where he's picking a lock and he's confessing to somebody who doesn't seem to care at all about him. And you can see she's starting to get into his character while he's talking. So there was a lot to go on to keep us from being bored with just the bald exposition, which what it was. The other two are revealed in subtler ways. But Steve just told us his situation. But then we find out he's not told us the whole situation.
Yeah, it's a
We find that
mislead,
out.
really. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
kind of a red herring, because he's making it sound as if this choice that he made early in life was based off his upbringing, and there's nothing else to it, But then come
Mhm.
at the end of the episode, you come to find out, oh wait, that's actually not true. And he's got
Yeah.
this unusual quirk that he does, which is that making of the omelet and then throwing it in the trash. And you're kind of like, well,
Mhm.
what's this about? And they come back to it every few scenes. And then, one of the things I really enjoyed about the show was the
Oh,
surrealism
the
at the
surreal.
end.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. They did that. They set it up first when they were talking
Hmm.
about the musical that Martin had seen, and and it was really nice little visual
Yeah.
special effect thing that they used at the end to show their turning point in a
Hmm.
sense. They
Yeah.
all at that point we realized, oh, they were doing that bouncing back, and now they're going to go on.
Hmm.
So it was a metaphor that was played for each character and was set up once
Hmm.
before that, and I thought it worked nicely. I thought it worked nicely. I thought it was enjoyable to watch. It wasn't a subtle. It was pretty obvious metaphor,
Hmm.
but it was interesting the way they shot it and the way they worked it into their story. And as I said, I'm enjoying it enough that I will come back to watch the next episode. I won't I won't hurry to do it, but I will do it.
And it also spoke to the want versus need category of, like, the
Yeah,
craftsmanship of the writing, right? Because he wants money, right? Like, in terms of Martin Short's character, he went to go visit a family member, and it was under the guise of wanting to see his grandkids and
yeah.
bring them presents. And I almost think that maybe he knew that the kids weren't going to be around, so he could,
I'm pretty sure that's what I got. He knew the
yeah.
kids weren't there.
Yeah, so he could ask for money from his son. And then that's speaking of like another angle, they had the diversity actor, like diversity actor. I hate using that shit. But
Mm.
it's like he clearly is in a relation, he had a relationship where it wasn't just a white on white birth crime or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. No, his son. It is his son, and his son clearly has darker skin than he does,
Hmm.
and you assume that the wife is of some darker race.
You hope so, or it's a
Than
milkman's baby or something, wife's maybe.
oh yeah.
But yeah,
But
I
I
was just,
like that. I like that because at first when I saw him, I didn't know who he was for sure because he doesn't look anything like his father.
yeah,
And
not at all. Yeah,
then very soon, well, he comes right out and says dad or
yeah.
something, and so you know immediately. But I like that too. Yeah, diversity. I really enjoy, and this is going off on a sidebar a little bit, but what I've discovered is commercials are doing a lot of interracial couples. Have you
Hmm.
noticed that?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been a huge push over the last couple of
Now,
years.
is that it must be because they found they sell more product that way because they're not doing it for for humanity, not
It's
people
either so
making
they can sell more
commercials.
product or so they don't get shut down. Like there was that it was so hot for a little bit that if you didn't have somebody of color or you didn't announce that you were for BLM or something like that, your entire
Yeah.
business would get shut down. So
Yeah, so I
it's
know since it's
held
for
hostage socially.
since it's commercials they're doing it, I don't expect that there's any real benevolent
No,
purpose.
yeah.
But I like it. I find it enjoyable to watch. I'm not sure why. I have told you, Airto, that I think that the only saving grace or possibility for this world is if people will intermingle,
Hmm.
if races will intermarry and have children who are both races, so that there's some sense of empathy with both races, and
Hmm.
then the one of two races should marry a third race. So at some
I'm
point it
ahead of the
should
game.
all
I started this,
I know.
many years ago. I've been on the forefront of this exploration for a
But
long
some
time.
people aren't.
You know,
I know you are, but some people don't like that. Some people are saying, you're diluting the culture, or you're diluting the race, and you go, what? You guys,
there's
are
no
you
real pure
kidding me?
race. I mean, if we've evolved across the planet, there's no pure race. It doesn't exist.
But I think that that the world could be saved if people started interacting more, started homogenizing, where all the races and people were blending. And I think we're doing more of that in the world. And if we can survive all our other issues, maybe there's hope for this world if we can stop becoming individual groups that war with the other individual group. I don't know. But anyhow, so I like the commercial. That's coming all from your saying that his son looked like there was another race involved
Yeah.
in his mate, and I like that. I think that's really cool, and I
It was
enjoy
a nice
seeing it.
touch, you know what I mean? And I liked, how familial they seemed, and they had
Yeah,
like a,
yeah,
a soft approach to each other. And
yeah.
I
And I thought I thought they both played that very nicely. I thought
yeah.
Martin Short, who was first a stand-up comic, later an actor, is very good as an
Oh,
actor.
he's great.
Yeah, and
He's got a sincerity. That's what you mentioned before. I think it was a different podcast. You're talking about when we were talking about Jake Peralta, played by Andy Sandberg,
mhm,
and you were talking about the acting, and you were saying he's kind of tongue in cheek, like he's always just waiting for the next bit to happen, and you
yeah,
didn't feel a lot of sincerity from him. And
mhm,
and I imagine that some of the actors you've worked with over the years have been great actors. They're not just good comedic, have good comedic timing, but they're actually very accomplished real actors. And I think that
mhm,
getting that realness across, that sincerity, really lends itself to comedy. I think a lot of people think, like, when you do comedy, that the main thing is to be goofy or obnoxious or whatever. But if
yeah,
there's a real sincerity to the character, then the comedy is even more profound, the thing that
right.
you're
I
laughing
agree.
at.
Yeah, even with stand-ups, I started out as a stand-up, and I worked with people like Jay Leno
Hmm.
and well, I never worked with Steve Martin, but I worked with David Letterman and Robin Williams, a lot of really
Hmm.
people who made it a little bit bigger than I did, but um, but I worked with him. I was on the same stage. I worked on the same performances with him, and I met them, and I'd see their work. The thing they all brought to the stage was themselves.
Hmm.
They played themselves. They did themselves, and even if it really wasn't who they were, it was persona they created that they were consistent with. And
Hmm.
that's where I agree with you. I think if the person on stage seems sincere, they can even do bad jokes and you kind of laugh at them,
Right.
or you're with them. What doesn't work, you see somebody get up there and try to be silly or big or
Yeah.
broad or goofy um or they're uncomfortable with their own jokes or their own
Hmm.
kind of presentation, their delivery.
Yeah.
That just makes you squirm. But when
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
gets up there and they look
Yeah.
like
Certainly.
they're really talking to you, like they're just making this stuff up because this is what they do. They make this stuff up. They don't,
Yeah.
people aren't writing for them, though people are writing for them.
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of these stand-ups are really good actors because they're playing personas on stage.
Hmm.
Some of them aren't. I mean, I worked with some stand-ups who are terrible actors,
Right.
um, but a lot of them bring that personal self to their performances in everything they do. And I remember Steve Martin when he first started doing films. I've always loved him and everything
Oh
he's
yeah.
done.
So good.
And Martin Short, and as I said, I'm liking Selena in this, so I would watch her. I don't think of her as comedy, and yet the first show she was in Was a comedy. I believe it was a Disney comedy. So,
Hmm.
she can
Yeah.
obviously play the comedy.
Again, I don't. This is the first time I've ever really probably seen her voice come out of her face or whatever. Like I'm really not familiar with her, but her voice is a lot deeper than I thought. Again, she because of the phenotypic, her phenotype. She's the way she looks is so young looking. I wasn't expecting her to sound as mature as she does, but that's good.
Huh?
I mean, so, um, but I wanted to say this too about the want versus the need, especially with that scene with Martin Short and in the son character. He wants, and that's where it lends itself to that surrealist moment. He wants to be obviously important. That seems to be a need. He made that comment where he's like, I'm a director. That's my day job, as I'm sure you probably know. It's like no
Right.
one there knows anything about him. He's selling that. But he wants to be thought of as important. But really, he needs to have a thing to be involved in. It's not. I don't even think it's just the monetary portion of it. That's why he was so willing to start the podcast. And when he found out the podcast was back on after feeling like
Mm,
it was just a suicide, it seemed like it gave him something to look forward to in a way. So and that I
mm,
think it's important to work on things, right? Like it's not so much whether, and this is like an aside from the show. I feel like being creative is like it's like one of my number one goals. Like I have to like I do a lot of things because I feel more comfortable if I'm creative. If I feel like the creativity of my life is being stripped away, having to work monotonous jobs or something like that, then it's like that's where I start getting depressed, or bummed out. But um, being creative is like a real, even if you're not reaching some pinnacle, like just the accomplishing of these little tasks and everything, and
mm,
building these skills makes you feel good, and it gives you something to kind of strive for on a day-to-day basis. So I feel like it's really important. And it's obviously very important for that character,
yeah.
so and then that's when it lent itself to that. I thought it was a very poignant yet beautiful mixing of that thing that they set up early in the show with the play that he had seen, and then
Yeah.
because he falls off the stairs and you're like, how's this gonna go, and
Yeah. Yeah. He
then
bounced
he
it right back,
rebounds.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and then it goes on. So I agree, but I think that point of the need versus the want, or the want versus the need, um, was the same for all three of them. I think
Hmm.
all three of them needed something that was engaging and creative for them.
Hmm.
All three of them in little different ways, but each one needed that more than they all seemed to want something. Steve Martin wanted another part and some recognition.
Right.
Uh,
That's a good
Gomez
point.
wanted to be left alone and wanted.
But she
Uh,
doesn't really, because she talked about how she's always got a group. She called them the Hardy Boys with her
yeah.
crew, and then that leads into her onion peeling, But um, it's like she talks about what maybe going alone is the best thing, but she's doing it in a group, a
Mm,
semi-group setting, and then they're forming a group together. And he said the
right.
same thing too about how maybe being alone is the best, but he's telling somebody
Uh-huh.
else. It just
No, usually, so the need is not only this activity that engages them, but it's the people they're working with. So
yeah.
it's kind of a double need. It's a need to be with people with whom you have a common interest of sorts,
Hmm.
so you're connected. So and when you talk about want and need, it doesn't always have to be clear cut.
Right.
As long as you understand that the difference usually between what you want and what you need,
Hmm.
and they all needed something that would engage them. But you're right, they also all needed companionship,
Hmm.
and that would seem to be their need. It was kind of a double need. In my opinion, it was almost equal,
Hmm.
maybe equal,
Right.
and but their wants were very different from what they needed,
Yeah.
and were different. Each one was different.
Yeah. And
So
that's a good spot right there. That you good catch. I recognized it more in the Martin Short character, but yes, Steve Martin's character, the Brazos, I think his name was in the
yeah,
show.
uh-huh,
He wants to be recognized for that character and to live off of that fame, and then he's still trying to go out for work, but he's only
yeah,
they're leaned into that particular that character. He's going to go to an
yeah,
audition for them wanting someone like that character, but not they don't want him, and he's just going. You already
yeah,
know he's not going to get the part, but
right.
and then he says I'm offer only, which
Yeah, which seems that's what he Yeah, that's what he seems to want
Hmm.
is his career and recognition still and all that things. What do you think Gomez wants? Her character wants?
Well,
We
this
know what
lends
she
itself
needs.
towards that thing at the end, right? That reveal of like, oh, she's actually more intimately tied with the person that they're
Right, 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 right,
investigating
right, right.
than, and that was maybe uh her ring. So,
But in my mind, her need is clearer than her want. I'm not sure what she wants.
oh, right, I see what you're saying. What does she want? Yeah, it's not as clear, right? Because we don't really,
We
what
don't
would she
really know what
want?
she wants. I'm not sure what she wants. I don't know what she wants because she
Yeah,
keeps to herself.
sure.
She seems to want to be um, isolated and independent, but
Hmm.
that's not at all what she needs. We see
Hmm.
that real quickly. So, um,
Well, there was a relationship there that she lost someone. So maybe she has a
mm,
personal reason for wanting to discover what happened because she's intimately tied in with this person, and that
yeah.
we don't discover that until the very end of the show. And they didn't have an interaction in the elevator.
No, which surprised me that there was nothing.
Yeah.
So I almost want to look at that scene again to see which the actress was playing, what the character was doing
Hmm.
when that character was in the because they all seem just to be a little bit put off by this guy because he was so busy talking and being loud on the phone and taking up their space a bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, so that may have hid what she was actually doing with her face and her body language.
Right.
I didn't get anything other than what we were supposed to get, the obvious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the cool thing about a reviewing of a show is like once you've learned something else. Now we've got a little bit of that dramatic irony built in. Now, as viewers, we know something that the other two main characters don't know, that she's tied
Mm,
in with this particular. So that's where you're gonna, in episode 2 and probably beyond, have a little bit more tension because you
yeah.
you understand that. Well, let me ask you this too. In terms of the writing, the craft part. What do you think of the separate voiceovers? And I do want to talk about that last scene, but I want
Yeah.
to.
Well, it started out with separate voiceovers. I've seen that done other times, many times, but I'm not a real fan of that. Sometimes it kind of
Hmm.
distracts me from who the center or who the primary voice is. So
Right. That's actually what I
I,
thought to ask. Yeah.
yeah, it kind of threw me. It was like, well, whose point of view are we seeing this story from? Because it seemed equally three people,
Hmm.
which is I'm not real comfortable with that. And somebody narrating could have described what they were all thinking as long as it wasn't one of the three characters.
Right.
But if you had Steve Martin just do his story, I'm not sure we needed the Martin short story because we got it without that little piece he was talking about. Steve Martin's kind of gave you a taste of the tone and the style of the series.
Right.
So his part made sense to me, and I don't think I would have done the other two.
And because he goes first, and that's who we're following as we track through the city to get back up to the apartment. You give this, it gives you the sense that his interest, his focus is the most important, the most weighty. And then yeah,
Yeah.
when you have the Martin Short and then the Selena Gomez
It all equals
voiceovers,
out, and the
yeah.
voiceovers, and then they keep breaking it up. So they do see like the Steve Martin, I mean the Martin Short thing with his son, and I keep mixing up actors' names with character names, but I'm sure everybody's following.
Hmm.
Um, that it seems pretty equal. We're seeing this thing from three points of view,
Yeah.
but they're all basically the same. It's not three points of view where they're seeing the situation differently. It's three points of view where they're all seeing the scene the same, but they have different backstories that we're getting from their points of view, from their voiceovers,
Hmm.
and their individual scenes. And I don't think it was necessary because I think we got all we needed to know about Martin Short from that scene he did with his son, the character did with his son, and Selena. I don't think the things she told us were that necessary in her voiceover. I think
Hmm.
we got that she had hardened herself and
Hmm.
she was got. Don't know that we needed that other part, or it could have come out in something she said to Steve Martin or to Martin Short.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. I don't know why I'm blanking on the character names. So I keep
I
using
can't
the
either,
actor's
but
name.
because they're such big names already. You just kind of it's
Yeah,
hard to.
you keep thinking the actors' names, but I don't think you needed Selena, her voiceover. I don't think you needed Martin's. I would have gone with Steve Martin's voiceover, period. That's how I would
Mhm.
have done it. And then I would have revealed the stuff from the others, from reveals that I would have made more from Steve Martin's point of view. But it feels right now it's divided among three people, and it feels maybe some people will love that. It's less conventional. Usually
Mhm.
you do it from one point of view,
Right. Yeah.
or
That exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
sometimes an omniscient kind of point
Mhm.
of view, and not, and then none of the characters seem to have a point of view. But Steve Martin started out with such a strong point of view, and also, oh, we switched. Now we're Martin Short's point of view, and I didn't. That first switch made me feel a little
It's a little jarring, I think.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's a good point too. That omniscient character narrator, like you have, like in Shawshank, you have Red in Shawshank Redemption, where you think it's about, normally that voice, you would think the show would be about that character, but really it was
Mhm.
about the Tim Robbins character, and so you're following
Yeah.
the Dufresne character. So, yeah, that's a good point. I actually I found it a little bit jarring, and then because Selena's segment, her voiceover was short, it was very truncated in comparison.
Mhm.
It seemed like she's a lesser character, but she's actually a very important piece of the puzzle. It was very interesting. It was an interesting take. Let me ask you this too. What do you think? Because it is a comedy. Do you feel like it's a more of a dramedy, a laugh out loud comedy? Did you find any jokes
I'd
made
say
you
it was
laugh?
I'd say it was a dramedy. I didn't laugh much, but I did appreciate there were funny things in it. Offhand, I can't remember because I've only seen it
I have
once.
one thing that made me laugh.
What was that?
Well, when he did, they're doing the voiceover for the podcast, and he's his second take, and he's like, "I'm your host, whatever, such and such Savage." That's something Savage. That's his name.
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, Martin Short's, response was, he's like, That's the take. We have it. The way Martin Short said "for now," it's just
Yeah,
like,
no,
okay,
I agree. The for now was really good.
yeah,
That- you nailed it for
yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, that was nice. That was nice. But so overall, it isn't exactly playing out the way I would write it,
Hmm.
or that I would like the way I would like to see it. But it's being done well enough that I find it a solid show, a
Hmm.
quality show, um, and very entertaining. But as I said, not will it will not be my favorite. I can tell you that already. I know even if I'm going to like it and watch all the episodes, it's not going to be my favorite that we've done so far that we've talked about. So,
It's certainly not a voice that I feel like I could spec. I like it. It's
mm,
interesting, and it's too 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 different. Maybe maybe it would
mm,
be a good practice in terms of growth to try
yeah.
to match that tone. But it's a tone that's a little off for me personally. You know what I mean, in terms of my writing style. But I found it to be entertaining. I'm interested to see where it goes, and it's one of those shows too where they don't resolve anything really at the end. It's another one
Mhm.
of those, where those anthology shows or whatever, where it leads into the next thing.
Well, they're serialized shows, like
Serialized, yeah.
more like soap operas have
Hmm.
always been, and now half-hour comedies. This was actually a 40-minute comedy, so it was
Right.
kind of
Okay. So
in
it's a little bit
between things.
different. Yeah.
But it's still, the newer comedies don't tend to be standalone, meaning you can't. In the old days when I was doing it, in the old days when we used typewriters and stuff, which the there were no dinosaur though. I do remember not seeing dinosaurs. So, by the way, I was a big fan of the Flintstones as a kid, and
Yeah.
I grew up thinking as a kid, I thought dinosaur and human beings lived at the same time because I thought somehow the cartoon was
They
true.
used to
But
tell us that shit though in school. Like I used to remember when I was a kid, there was it I was like probably like in, I don't know, young adulthood before like somebody had mentioned, like, they technically did not ever exist, but they
yeah,
used to
they
sell
never
us that
existed at the
shit.
same time. I know.
And then that's
And then
why they have
for
fossil fuels.
yeah, yeah, it's all fossil fuel, Well, you mean that many? There were that many dinosaurs that they all turned into oil? No, no,
Yeah,
no. It was the jungles as well, and then you start saying, well, you told me so many other things that weren't true.
these
I
are
mean,
all lies, all
it started
lies.
out, the worst one for me, from my earliest days was when I found out Santa Claus didn't really exist.
Hmm.
But they went to so much trouble to make me believe in Santa Claus. And then they tell me one day, you're old enough to know.
Hmm.
I think I was 40 at the time, but
Yeah. Yeah, the
Santa Claus is
foundation of our
not.
existence is just based on lies. I mean, what else have we been lied to that we believe?
I don't know, but anyhow, I don't know. One thing's also is about point of view, since we were talking about that.
Hmm.
I've always sometimes when a movie, I used to get this in my film class all the time. People would ask when I was a student, they'd say, well, whose point of view is this on a movie, which seemed to have just an omniscient point of view or no really clear point of view from any of the characters.
Right.
But once you start out with a narrative like Steve Martin's, you're clearly setting a point of
Hmm.
view. And when you do three different point of views, but then you don't change what you're seeing from that perspective, it seems like a waste of having three points of views because they all kind of see the thing the same way. So there
Hmm.
really isn't separate points of views, but the narrative makes it sound like there will be,
Yeah,
which
the
would have been
narrative is
interesting.
interesting. Yeah,
It would have
because
been
it
interesting if they all had different takes on what they saw and did and how they did it. But
I don't even know that the narrative is actually necessary for the story. Like you could have just had the three main characters say those things to another character in the show, and
mm,
like, oh, these are our main three characters. But the narrative portion of it gives you more of like that novelization, intimate feeling with the particular person, and
mhm.
then now you're with three. I don't know. Maybe they did that because it's set in New York, and they want to, there's so many characters in New York. Why is it these three people? But
Yeah, I don't know. All I see is that the three people are very much alike, and the separation that they did at the very beginning doesn't seem to hold up beyond the narrative. So,
what were you saying though about when you guys did the wait, like you pointed out too, it's not really a comedy, I guess, because it's got that 40-minute lifespan. So
well, it's not a traditional comedy in any way. It's too long to be a half-hour comedy.
hmm.
It has a lot of drama in it. They don't seem to go for laughs very often, but they get enough of them where if somebody said what genre, I would put this in the comedy genre. Um, but I think that it doesn't quite fit. It's more of a dramedy. I hate that word, but
Mm.
I can't think of a better one. A comedic drama or a dramatic comedy,
I mean,
dramedy.
it fits because it is humorous. Like there are like their characterizations of these particular characters, and like especially with the things that they want versus what they need.
Absolutely.
That stuff is funny, like that's on the surface. It's pretty interesting to watch.
It was funny.
Yeah.
The thing is, we're again obviously not a comedy because in a half-hour comedy, in a traditional half-hour comedy, you wouldn't show a guy with half his head blown off.
Right.
You can't do that in a half-hour comedy. So they
Hmm.
just wouldn't do it unless you were doing a dramedy. Dramedies can put that in, and dramas can put that in,
Hmm.
but pure comedies just don't do shots of people getting. Well, we didn't see the actual murder, but the shot
Hmm.
they showed of him was very graphic, something you would never do in a half-hour comedy.
Hmm.
So it's a hybrid or a mix of different forms, but ultimately it is a comedy, but it's not even close to being a traditional half-hour comedy. It's something of its own, which I like, by the way.
Hmm.
I'm sick of half-hour comedies. I've been doing that all my life, and I'm really sick of that half-hour form. So I'm of the shows we've seen, though this is my favorite. I would watch this before I'd watch another Big Bang Theory.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, radically different than Big Bang. I mean, I don't even think the
It's-
same audience. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably
Yeah,
there's some crossovers,
there'll
but
be some crossovers because both are comedies. They do both fit into the comedy genre, but Big Bang Theory is too many jokes, and unless you're laughing all the time, you're not going to stay for it.
and
For me, but you do laugh a lot. They are successful at pulling off a lot of laughs with very simple, thin storylines, very simple, thin almost one-dimensional characters, except that the guys are all super scientists. Then they become one-dimensional in those super scientist parts. So,
Hmm.
not a big fan of The Big Bang Theory, but would watch it for the jokes. It
Hmm.
makes me laugh, and would watch this one because I'm enjoying the performances. I'm enjoying the characterization of these characters, of these people. These
Hmm.
people, I'm enjoying the characters we're discovering them to be.
Right. Yeah, and you'd have to get, heavyweight actors. I think, like Steve Martin, he's always kind of had that ability to play comedic roles very well, but he can do drama. I mean,
Oh
he's
yeah.
got that type of personality or ability to really draw you in on a couple of lines, And same with Martin Short. I mean, Martin Short's um, career is obviously so expansive. He's done so many different things. He can really play great comedies, but he does know how to also draw you in emotionally.
Hmm.
So that's a very interesting technique. And was it who was in Three Amigos? I know it was Chevy Chase, Steve. Was it Steve Martin and Martin Short?
I think it was, yeah.
Oh, okay, so this we're just missing Chevy Chase on this one. So,
Yeah,
um,
which, yeah.
and they've
Mm.
been doing that Broadway show recently. Whatever I forget the title of
Yeah,
that, but Martin Short and Steve Martin have been doing that
yeah,
show. They've been doing a lot of work together lately. So,
yeah. I'd like to see that. I haven't seen them perform just straight comedy yet. I
yeah.
think I'd like to see it. They ought to do a special version. Maybe they have done a special.
I
I
do,
don't
yeah, I
know.
saw a special that they did not too,
Oh,
a couple
oh,
of years ago, but it was their, I think it was their Broadway show or something. It was really good. I mean, yeah, they're
yeah.
super talented and they know how to feed off each other really well, and
Hmm.
they bring a lot to the show. But so I guess now we've discussed a lot of the show and stuff. So there was one of the things that like kind of jarred me, and when we were talking about it right before the show, I guess it had a similar effect on you. Is that scene with Steve Martin in the shower at the very end of the show?
With Steve Martin in the shower, yeah,
Yeah,
that was weird.
really threw me for a loop.
Yeah, he looked a lot like Selena Gomez,
And
actually.
I was like, this is so gratuitous, and I don't understand the context, but he's sexy in there. So, what are you gonna
Yeah,
do? It's that eye candy that you need.
yeah. Well, can we talk about what really happened at the end? Or are we gonna
Yeah,
give
yeah.
stuff away?
No, it's fine. Who cares? I mean, we
Yeah.
don't.
Well, so the truth is there was a gratuitous scene at the end, that in a shower scene with Selena Gomez, who's a very pretty woman. But I thought it was totally unnecessary. I don't think we gained anything from seeing her take a shower at the end,
Right.
except
There's nothing
just
there.
no, nothing except just eye candy, just some of the
It was
uh,
so unusual, given the context of the show and
yeah.
everything. It really, and she's like we said, we've already established she's an attractive person, but it just popped me out. It popped me out of the show because I literally started thinking like, why is she in the shower? Like, what? No one else is in a shower scene. That you know what I mean? It could have been a shot where she's in the shower, but you're not showing her physically in the shower, and then still done that tracking shot to the end reveal. I just didn't really understand. Was it either enough of Selena Gomez in the shower to really distract me from questioning myself watching the show as a viewer, but I just didn't really understand why, where that decision came from, or how
Well,
that was written in, or I don't know.
you could do, because you showed each one in kind of a very personal, vulnerable moment, and you could
Right.
you could
Okay.
make a case for
That's a good
someone being in the
argument.
shower, but why? It could have. You made a joke about it, but it could have been Steve Martin in the shower.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't have been about sexuality. Except then they want to say, yeah, but that's it. She's a very sexual person, so you can defend it. I'm not saying it's undefendable,
Right.
but just threw me because they didn't play her that way at all. And then at the very end, it's kind of just the way they threw it in, and even got a little bit of her breast in the shot. I just thought that was unnecessary because it was a different kind of moment, and it automatically made me think gratuitous scene, gratuitous
Hmm.
moment, and which wasn't why they do that. Why didn't they just show her in some other intimate situation like they did with the guys? And I think in some ways that's one of those things about women being treated unfairly on the
Hmm.
screen, that they had to sexualize the woman. They didn't. The two guys obviously aren't as sexy as she is, but the only way I can defend that is if in the story her sexuality is going to be more important than it is at this point.
But
Now
it's not
she's a
really,
pretty
is it really
woman.
sexuality? Because it's kind of the sexuality part of it is in the eye of the beholder, right? Like, because we're heterosexual, we're gonna find her attractive. I don't know if a woman watching, they may just think she's a woman and taking a shower. But to your point about it being an intimate moment that is revealing more about her character, they could have done an over the shoulder shot with her hair wet and she's in a bathrobe or something like that. So we knew that she was, previously, I don't know why her being clean or unclean in this scenario makes any difference whatsoever. But if she were looking at the picture that reveals that second layer of her character,
Yeah.
it was just bizarre. It was bizarre enough to where, and I'm
I
not complaining. She's it's fun to look at
Yeah,
her
it
in
was,
a shower,
she
but
was
it's
pretty,
just
but it
weird.
felt there's no way it didn't feel gratuitous, and I think it would have been fun to see Steve Martin in the shower.
Yeah.
And you would laugh at the thing that they went for the obvious someone in the shower scene
Hmm.
to sell intimacy, and they went with a guy who you really wouldn't want to see in the shower, whether you're a man or a woman. Probably you
Yeah.
don't want to see Steve Martin in the shower. But if they did the same shot they did with her, which from the back, it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been fine with Steve Martin, but it could have been amusing with Steve Martin. Where with her, it felt gratuitous, and
Hmm.
maybe that's just my own mindset. I just felt you have
Well, no,
two
I mean,
minutes.
we didn't, watch
Yeah,
it together. And when we both started talking about it, that was the
yeah.
first
When
thing
you have
we mentioned. It was like,
we
yeah, I
we have
totally
three
agree.
stars and two are men and one's a woman, and the woman has to do a naked scene
Yeah, and she's the,
that does not
hot
advance the
young girl.
story. Does not
Hmm.
advance the story. It does establish that she's attractive, sexual, sexy person, but
That's
that
not
wasn't important
integral to the
yet.
part at all. It's not, it
Wasn't
doesn't have any.
important. It wasn't important, and it just felt gratuitous because of maybe what our social situation is now that women are exploited in that way.
Well, I'm not even trying to
Why?
white knight on this one. I don't. It's not like I'm standing up. If she chose to be in the, more power to her or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care in that. Really, I don't. It just didn't fit in the context of the show.
The tone and style of the show is where it didn't fit to
Yeah.
me. The tone and the style of the show did not require a nude scene.
Unless it's one of those things like the elevator scene where, knowing something later, it'll reveal, we'll find out something else. You know what I mean? So like she was involved with the character in the elevator scene and we didn't know that until much later. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to watch more. And it could be one of those things too where they're like, how do we keep viewers? You know what I mean? We have to give them something,
Yeah.
that,
That's what I'm hoping it wasn't. But
yeah.
the truth is, you and I, when we watch something, we're hyper critical of it. We're
Hmm.
looking at every possible. So we're looking for something. We're thinking in terms of those kinds of things are very gratuitous usually. So we are thinking about it being gratuitous, and maybe most people went right past that, and they're so used to seeing that kind of exploitation of. I think it's exploitation. They're so used to seeing it as part of the normal style for shows, and they didn't even think about it. So they're saying, that, why are we making a big fuss? And I'm not. It didn't hurt the show. It didn't help the show. I just felt it looked like somebody made a gratuitous choice there, and
Yeah.
that I didn't like that. I don't like artists choosing gratuitous moments.
Yeah, and I'm typically like I don't really like love scenes, and it's not that I don't like showing love in a film, but I don't really. I've gotten to the point where I don't really like those scenes anymore. They don't seem to be very realistic, and even if they're trying to go real
Yeah,
hyper
yeah,
realistic, like girls or something, it doesn't really appeal to me. But yeah, I just it just kind of like you said when we were talking about it earlier, it just kind of it threw me, and it just came up in conversation, and I just found that to be like,
yeah.
wow, this is very interesting. Like how normally I would like to see a woman in the shower, but it didn't have anything to do with the story. I don't see like,
Unless later on we find out it does.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
she
it
tries to
could.
seduce one of them out of insecurity,
Hmm.
or maybe
And I don't see it
he,
going that route. I mean,
no, no,
that would
no,
be
it's not going to go that
unusual,
way.
but
I'm just saying
yeah, I get
that
it.
maybe we'll find something later on that was a reason they wanted to hype up her sexuality. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that wasn't necessary. She was already a sexual, pretty woman in a situation with two old guys, two old fart men,
Hmm.
and that was an interesting combination. They didn't have to do her looking sexier. because
I think
that felt gratuitous. That felt gratuitous to me.
right. Okay. Yeah. But where you brought up her vulnerability, like you in that kind of apartment where it's all deconstructed and it's very vacant and you know things are missing or whatever. That's actually like a visual vulnerability tied into that very next visual image of the guy on her laptop. So if you were going for like a that visual metaphor for her what her character is going through, when you said the thing about her being vulnerable, yeah, it didn't really dawn on me. So maybe like I said, it's not totally undefendable, but it was an interesting choice, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just think it's sometimes when you're doing a story, you have to think about the current events in the current world because it's going to influence the way your audience perceives it. And I think
Hmm.
under the current situations, they could have just not done it, and I think people would have felt better.
Hmm.
But as I said, we're being very critical because this is what we're due. This is what we're due. This is what we do.
I really want to know what
Uh,
people think. Like anybody who's watching the show, if you have a comment about it, I mean, I'd like to know what other people did they notice it? Did it impact them? Did it just completely went under the radar? Like they just didn't have any notice of it at
yeah.
all? I'm curious.
Yeah, and maybe it was an innocent choice, and it just came off that way to us because we're aging old men. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. As I said, it didn't really affect my appreciation of the show one way or the other.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch a show looking for another, and I wouldn't turn off the show because they did that. I just felt it looked like a cheap choice. Cheap
Yeah,
shot.
I agree. And ultimately, like I said, the next thing that they revealed
Was important.
that made me more interested in what's going to happen on the next episode or throughout the series. And same with the Martin Short and Steve Martin characters. Those things are really kind of what
Mm,
tied me in to be more interested, way more than them solving the mystery, which is
yeah.
part of the fun of it. But
Kind of, I think like in girls, you mentioned girls, and girls they'd be sitting on the toilet taking a
hmm.
dump. I was like,
Hmm.
who needs to see that either? But it was something we hadn't seen before. That was her point, the
Hmm.
creator, in wanting to show women do what men do, and they sometimes it's not always looking feminine and sexy.
Hmm.
And it had a purpose. It had a real purpose. You see her on the toilet. It wasn't just to put a woman on the toilet. It was establishing that world they lived in.
Hmm.
But this didn't do anything.
Yeah. And to that point too, like in terms of the female liberation or what have you, you know what I mean? I think that there's a misconception as to what guys' humor is. Guys don't always sit around talking about shit and fart jokes. You know what I mean? That's not really our forte. I don't have those conversations with a lot of my friends. But there's a
Huh.
misconception that that guys are disgusting and that's what they think is funny or whatever. So then you get the Jenna McCarthy's or whatever, people who have the girls that have the real crass kind of lowbrow humor. And that's not what makes something funny to me. You know what I mean? It generally is
No,
the last thing I find funny.
I
So,
know. For me
um,
too. I love clever
yeah,
most. And when somebody does something obvious, it makes me uncomfortable
yeah,
as a viewer who's also a writer. As a viewer who was just a viewer, you probably, as I said, didn't even notice the scene.
hmm,
The importance of the scene was at the end of the scene, what they show, not her, something
hmm,
off of her. Um, and you could have done that in a much simpler scene because I don't want to keep hammering this, but I'd love to have seen that done with Martin Short or
yeah,
or or Steve Martin in the shower because it would have been funnier, and it would have fit the funniness of the show. It would have been amusing, and to those people who were hypercritical of these things like we are, we would have known what they were doing. They're making fun of that nude shot that they throw in usually of a
hmm,
woman and have it a guy who's not sexy looking at all. Uh,
yeah. It works
just
antithetical to the social construct, of like what we're dealing with these days, which would have been funnier. You're kind of tongue-in-cheeking the moment that we're in without
yeah,
making a big
yeah.
deal about it. Yeah. Yeah,
But
I agree. I think that's I thought that was funny though, that like, in the conversation we had when we first started talking about having watched the show, that was one of the first things that like,
yeah,
we talked about, which is, yeah, it was very jarring, and it didn't ruin the show. Like I said, it didn't make me want to watch more for it or watch less of it. It's just one of those
No,
things that really kind of stood out to me as being. I didn't. Nothing else stood out to me as being, you know, um,
pandering to
yeah,
to get a joke or a laugh or a
right,
thrill or something. Yeah,
exactly, yeah,
everything else felt like it had a purpose.
right,
It did. Everything else felt like it had a purpose. So we didn't necessarily love the narratives at the beginning. They still did serve a purpose. But
exactly,
that
yeah,
that that to me didn't serve any purpose except showing that, in case you didn't get it by then, that she's sexy and pretty.
hmm
But we had got more than enough to get that.
yeah. You
And
can see that in the first scene where she steps into the, in front of the camera. I mean, that's just the way she, that's
yeah,
how it is.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I found that, yeah, very interesting. So,
So
yeah,
I would recommend this show. I
yeah,
personally
okay,
would I'd give it 2 thumbs up
okay, all right, there we go.
because I think it was entertaining.
Right, okay, yeah. Let's see, would I give it 2 thumbs up? I mean, sure, why not? I mean, I'm not gonna hate on any Steve Martin experience. They're all great. I still really love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Yeah, I would give it maybe 2 thumbs up. It's not like super enthusiastic. I don't really want to give it a thumbs down. It didn't really deserve a thumbs down. I just,
Yeah,
like you
no,
said,
I know.
I'm based off the first episode, which sometimes is the roughest episodes to watch.
Yeah,
So I can't say I'm in love with the show. But I wasn't in love with Ted Lasso before, on the pilot
right.
alone. And then it took me a couple of episodes, and then I was really hooked. So it
And I
it, it could
think
happen.
I told you that Cheers. I worked on Cheers, and Cheers. I've shown the pilot to students, and I've
Hmm.
never had a room of students ever like it.
Yeah.
And the Cheers pilot not only launched a show that won many Emmys, more maybe any other
Right.
show,
Yeah.
ran for 12 successful years and only quit when they wanted to
12.
quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And they
When they
beg them to
chose
come
to
back,
quit,
right? Like
yeah,
they
yeah,
they
every year
refused.
they beg him to come back,
It's crazy.
and that episode won an Emmy for best writing that year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I show it to classes, I showed it to at least 3, maybe 4 of my screenwriting, television writing
Right.
classes. And then I'd ask afterwards, and almost no one in the room even liked it.
That's
I mean,
funny.
not only were they not enthusiastic about it, but they didn't even like it.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, I don't know if it's an era thing either. Because I watch these older shows and I'm still just as impressed with what they're doing and how they're doing it. You watch an old I Love Lucy or something like that, and the pacing of the show is not the same that we have now,
yeah.
right? We're much more in depth with characters and changes, but what they're doing in terms of skill is very fascinating, and it's still
Yeah, it
engaging.
is. It was still very physical because people got physical comedy more
Yeah.
than they got more sophisticated language comedies. But
Yeah.
you know what would have made yeah, I those old comedies all probably would be better. Like if we'd seen Lucille Ball in the shower
Hmm.
in I Love Lucy,
Yeah.
wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
So there's a time to show a nude woman in the shower, and there's times
Yeah.
not to.
Yeah. 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 It's an interesting thing to like argue against, right?
I
It's
know
like
because to tell you the truth, I liked the visual.
yeah.
I didn't like the content and I think the motivation.
Yeah. But I do like that point that you brought up, that the vulnerability. I mean, that is a huge portion of the show, because like, for example, with Martin Short's character, where he's asking for money, he
Yes,
has this
vulnerable.
pride on the one hand, where he's trying to sell himself as this person that he's maybe was and is no longer, or maybe never was. But it's that vulnerability, that pride. And then again with the omelet thing, where the neighbor asked Steve Martin, like, oh, I like, he's like, oh, I'll turn the fan on, because the guy commented on smelling the almonds, and he says, no, I like it, it reminds me of Lucy. How's he doing? So how's she doing? And he says, are you still in touch? And he says, here and there. So that was one of those like real moments of sincerity, or that way to elicit empathy from the viewer. That's that
Yeah,
Steve Martin trait, skill, where he could elicit in a short moment, elicit some empathy, from me, the viewer, because I'm like, oh, well, what's going on with this relationship? So those are the things that, yeah, that bring me back to the show. I want to see if I was going to watch for anything else. You always assume that they're going to solve the mystery at some point. So
yeah. I'm sure they solved the mystery by the end of the first season
yeah.
because Then second season, I guess they'd have another murder in the building.
Sure.
So
And then it's like at a certain point, you're like, well, we're going to move, like how long are we going to live in this? Solving the murders is great, but this place is a dangerous place to live.
yeah. But I actually like the Steve Martin narrative because I liked what he said about New York. I liked what he said about the guys you got to worry about are the ones out in the boondocks, not the ones in New York City.
Yeah.
Those were kind of funny attitude things.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that narrative. The other two, I didn't really get much from their narratives except information that I could have gotten through dialogue and action that would have felt more natural to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, how do you build an exposition so the audience quickly gets up to speed with who these characters are, so we can force them together? It's like that thing we talked about with Big Bang, where they wrote in the stuff that you would think as a writer, or you'd have to figure out a way to show on the screen. It was very unusual technique-wise, but how do you do it? And this is one of those examples of here's another way to try it. Another way to do it.
No, it's possible, and it's again, it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
It only hurts from a point of view of a critic who's being super difficult on the whole production.
And I don't think it's hypercritical. I mean, we're viewers, you know what I mean? We've seen so many stories. You don't have to obviously you don't have to follow whatever rules have been set by someone else, but it does. Right. There is a reason why those rules exist, because it is jarring. It's like, well, whose story are we telling here? We're telling all three, but are they all of equal importance? I don't know. So we'll find out.
Yeah, if this were in a writing class, that would probably work against them. I think in a writing class, there's a lot of mistakes that were made that you'd point to, but then ultimately you'd look at it and say, and the teacher, so you get a C. Somebody else writes something that all fits together and is clean and right, and he gets the A. But the C is the one you actually enjoyed watching, not the A.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I'd rather watch the C. I'd rather have the C that people want to watch than have an A that's perfectly formatted and structured. That is like some of the people I know who've worked at some of the places I've worked would do. So I just want to say that this show was entertaining. That's all. I think that should be like, I want that to be not thumbs up or thumbs down. Is it entertaining or not entertaining?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Yeah, exactly.
That's why you're doing this, to entertain people.
Yeah. I mean, because if it's not entertaining, it doesn't matter if you got the voiceover pitch perfect, and there's only one of them, and we're following this. Not only is the narrator the main character and all that good stuff, the protagonist, and they have a strong. It's just like it really only matters is would you come back to it? And we've both decided, like we'll watch it again. We'll watch.
Yeah, we'll watch it again. We will watch it again, and there's so many shows on now that I want to watch again, but I don't have time. I don't know if anybody else out there is starting to feel that there's just too many. It used to be there weren't enough good shows to give you enough to want to watch, and you'd be bored. But now, since you can stream it and watch it whenever you want to watch it, you can kind of line them up together. There's just too much. I can't keep up with everybody's that I want to watch.
I mean, you got to carve out a 8-hour block to get in through some of the episodes of all these different. Yeah, we watch a lot of shows, so. And even in doing this show, we're watching different shows that we probably would not normally watch, just so that we can expand the catalog of what's, understand what's out there.
But then I want to watch almost everything we've shown. I would watch, even the Big Bang Theory, which, as I said, it was the #1 earning show for a long, long time. It was the top of the Nielsen's. I don't want to put it down. It did what it was supposed to do very well, but it wouldn't be one of my first choices to use my time for, but I still would watch it too. We haven't talked about anything yet that I wouldn't, if I had all the time in the world, watch. But you don't have all the time in the world. The other thing too, you got to feed your chickens.
That takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so
I'd almost rather watch TV, to be honest with you, because that's really a considerable amount.
Well, what you got to do is put the food on the coffee table and invite the chickens in. Watch as you want to watch. And
well, you hear them now. I mean, they're crowing for food. They need.
I know. I hear it. I hear
that feed.
That's what made me think about it. So I think it's so cool. People would think from our soundtrack that you live on a farm, but he doesn't. He lives in a house.
Yeah.
And he just likes to do. Airto's a very eclectic personality or person. He he has so many interests, and one of them happens to be chickens, which I always find amusing. That's why I keep bringing it up, because so unlike him, it's the last thing I would have expected that he raises chickens. But
Yeah, they're raising hell is what they're doing. They're so annoying actually. I have this battle going on where the alpha rooster has now been ousted from the flock and he's sulking
oh,
around, and the younger ones have stepped into his place and taken over.
wow.
Yeah, there's a real battle going on in my backyard. There's
Wow.
a lot of classic Shakespearean
See,
stuff going on back there.
I tell Airto that the solution is pretty easy. It's just a fried chicken night,
Yeah.
and boom, he's got these problems solved. But he's in love with these chickens now. He can't eat
Well,
them.
rooster we don't really eat in America. We only eat the hens,
I
So
thought we
you can eat
roosters used
rooster
for
though.
something. I think people eat roosters on farms. I think they do.
Yeah,
I
I think,
think. I'm not sure.
and I know that like people sacrifice roosters if they're into the dark arts, So that's
Yeah.
another route.
Yeah, or yeah, so some of the chickens. Well, anyhow, I'm not gonna bring up the chickens so much, but I can't help it. I hear it crow and it makes me laugh inside. I'm not laughing outside, but I'm thinking that is a funny thing. This man is raising a lot of chickens and roosters and hens and roosters. I guess they're all chickens.
Yeah.
Um,
Some of them are just useless feeders at this point. They're not giving me any eggs, and they're just taking up my time and money with eating. Now, but this battle that's going on in the backyard is really pretty special. You get to see the changing of the guard. It's kind of interesting.
yeah, I think you have some interesting stories that you've told me about that. Now, for me, my only interaction with animals, being a city boy, is that I walk my dog 3 times a day, which is a drag. And I can't imagine him take care of chickens 24 hours a day. It's like,
Still, I
wow.
mean, 3 times a day, that's a lot, for walking your dog. Because I mean, he has to go out, but still, you got to be really diligent with him, right? Because you can't
Oh
go in the
yeah, because
house.
I live in an apartment building, so it's actually a condominium. But because of that, the dog has to go out.
Hmm.
And though I put pads down too, so the dog has the option, but the dog never wants to use the pads. The dog wants to go outside. So my wife and I walk her 3 times a day. We take turns, and that seems like so much work. I can't imagine actually raising farm animals.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too of walking a dog. When you have people have dogs, like we originally bought, we've been through a few different houses now, and each house we were upgrading the backyard. Thinking my dog is gonna love this backyard. And not only can we, raise vegetables and chickens, perhaps, but my dog is gonna love this backyard. He doesn't give a shit about the backyard.
Oh, he never goes out there.
He goes out there, he'll hang out, but he wants back in like after a couple of
Yeah.
minutes. But if we take him on a walk, he wants to be out for hours. He's all about nature when we
Yeah,
go
isn't
for a
that
walk.
interesting? Dogs love to walk. My dog
Yeah.
will walk forever. She will not stop. I have to eventually turn her around, and sometimes I literally have to pick her up. She's a little dog. I have to pick her up and start walking back toward the house, and then put her down. I have to change her mindset of her direction, or
Yeah.
she won't step. She will avoid walking in the direction of my house.
Yeah, our dog, like,
So
he'll start walking slower, like if it's time to start heading back, he
yeah,
starts
yeah,
trudging along.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. The life of a dog.
So it's probably
So
about that time to start saying happy birthday to somebody. Who's on the birthday? My
Did we
birthday's
say
coming up
hello?
soon.
Oh, yours is, yeah,
Yeah.
yours coming up soon. You're in Gobble Day,
Hmm.
but it's not always. Sometimes yours is, and sometimes it isn't, because it's
Yeah,
always a
this year it's not,
Thursday.
but it's the day after. But
Well,
yeah,
oh yeah, no, no, aren't you on? You are. It is Thanksgiving, right?
not this year. Yeah, but some
Oh, it's
years it
not.
is. Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at my calendar, and it looks like I must have your date wrong, because I have you up there with a big birthday cake thing over the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This year it's
Oh,
not, and which is kind of, it's kind of a relief because then I get a birthday and a Thanksgiving. Sometimes when they're combined, people call to say happy Thanksgiving, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's your birthday." They,
yeah.
they kind of throw it in as an afterthought. But
Well, I think I'd like to say happy birthday to Drusilla, because very few people remember her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I know you're watching Drusilla, because you've always liked my stuff. So,
yeah,
and
Drusilla it is.
Drusilla it is this time. So I'll say goodbye to you, Airto, and to all our loyal followers. the three of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome
Uh,
aboard.
yeah, welcome. Glad you were here today again, and we'll see you, or you'll see us in sometime soon, right?
Either here on YouTube or on Twitter or I guess Spotify or I don't know, some of the places that we're at. But yeah.
Or
Um,
if you send us your address, we will show up in your living room.
yeah.
So
We'll do the show at your house. Yeah, that'll be cool.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Well, take care, and I will see you, and we will next week. We'll do some other impromptu
Yeah, we'll talk.
thing.
We'll figure it out. And then other than that, yeah, I think this is a good one and this was a fun discussion. So
Yeah, yeah, it was a fun discussion. I just don't want anybody to think so that Ken Esten is such an old fart. He's objecting because they showed a little tit on the show.
no, I mean I was like, again, I was also kind of thrown. It's jarring. It's
Just
just
wasn't necessary. I'm all for it when it really fits the story. When it
yeah,
really
I don't
fits
even
the
need a
story.
story to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter, but if there's gonna be a story involved, I want to know why it's there,
yeah, yeah. Okay. So
All right.
so long, Drusilla. And well, I want to say one other thing.
What's that?